Elsewhere, we see that Tanaka has injured his shoulder and asks for healing from the group's healer Shimizu. But instead of immediately tending to him, she teases him, demanding something in return. However, before anyone can react further, the Ant King suddenly appears and in a brutal twist rips Shimizu's head off and acts so shocking that it plunges the team into terror. And that shit seems like that damn Hunter x Hunter Ant arc all over again. Tanaka and his fellow hunter quickly sense a formidable presence nearby and immediately raise their guard to prepare for combat. However, before they can react further, the monster strikes with lethal precision, decapitating Tanaka and doing the same to the other hunter on their team as if they are nothing. The scene then shifts to the ant nest, where the hunters are battling white ants that seem to possess strength on par with S-rank hunters. Despite their formidable power, the ants move in a monotonous, predictable fashion, making them easy targets for hunters employing diverse tactics. One by one, the white ants are taken down. Chai points out that the exoskeletons of these ants are extremely tough, yet Megdonwook is relieved there aren't too many of them. Byung-gu reassures everyone that even if there are many, there's no need to worry because he will support the team from the rear. Bak is taken aback by Byung-gu's calm assurance, especially coming from someone who usually shies away from combat. In response, Byung-gu tells him to quit the sarcasm, reminding him that these ants can keep living even if their heads are chopped off, so the key is to cripple them instead. Bake takes his advice to heart and cripples one of the ants he just slayed by his foot. Megdonwook then observes that the enemies seem to grow stronger the deeper they venture into the cave, though they still haven't encountered any ants that walk on two legs. Mr. Choi speculates that these Bikdal ants must be guarding the queen. Lim chimes in, expressing concern that they have a long way to go and questioning whether they're on the right path. Mr. Choi reassures him that they likely are, and Chahad concurs, remarking that she can even detect a strong scent of powerful magical beasts emanating from deep within the cave. Surprised that Chehae can sense such a presence from so far away, Mr. Choi suggests that perhaps Bake might be able to pinpoint them using his abilities. He tests this idea and successfully locates the queen. After a thorough search through the cave, he informs the group that the queen ant resides in the deepest part ahead, heavily guarded by numerous S-rank defenders. He warns that the decoy forces outside have their limits and urges them to move quickly. Although he acknowledges that the battle ahead will be challenging due to the unknown strength of the queen ant, he remains confident that with their current lineup, they are poised for victory. Back outside, we see that another team of Japanese hunters arrives on the scene, searching desperately for any sign of Tanaka and his missing comrades, as their comms have fallen silent. One of them spots what appears to be Fujishima's glasses, but before he can investigate further, his companion suddenly vomits and grimly remarks that he smells something utterly terrifying approaching. He channels his ice magic toward the source of the stench, only to have his efforts rendered futile when the Ant King shatters the ice with him inside. Meanwhile, Kumamoto and Tawada, unable to locate Tanaka's team, decide to focus on the battle unfolding before them. Back at the ant nest, the hunters have advanced into the queen ant's chamber and are heartened by the sight of a formidable force awaiting them. Byung-gu then steps up and uses his skills to bolster the entire group, infusing them with extra power as the fight erupts in earnest. Then Mr. Choi unleashes a torrent of fire magic to incinerate the advancing ants, admitting that he normally avoids using such potent spells, but he's making an exception given the dire circumstances. Not to be outdone, Bake transforms completely into a mighty white tiger and pounces on the ants, tearing them apart with his bare claws. Chahae, witnessing Bak's fearsome beast form, is visibly awestruck. Amid the chaos, a news reporter with the team receives word that the viewership for the raid has skyrocketed, surpassing 380%. Eager for dramatic footage, the reporter attempts to get closer, only to be firmly held back by Byung-gu, who reminds him that this is an S-rank raid and that safety must come first. The battle is broadcast live, and nationwide the people watch with high expectations. As the fight rages on, Lim methodically takes out countless ants with his precise arrows, while Mr. Choi continues to fry the adversaries with his relentless fire magic. Bak in his white tiger form rips them apart, and Chehae slices through wave after wave of the insect horde. Then eventually, after a lot of fighting, the hunters dispatch the last of the ant guards, setting the stage for the final confrontation with the queen ant herself. The queen ant then launches an attack on Megdonwook, but he manages to block her onslaught with his shield while Lim fires a volley of arrows at her. Beck joins the fray, remarking that a queen stripped of her guards is nothing more than a vulnerable target. In retaliation, the queen unleashes a cloud of poisonous breath toward Megdonwook and Bake, but Byung-gu intervenes, healing them instantly. He vows that as long as he's present, he will help them rise again no matter how many times they fall. The queen then turns her attention to the healer, but Megdonwook again blocks her assault while Mr. Choi pummels her with relentless fire magic. Despite their combined efforts, the queen remains standing and emits a blood-curdling scream that echoes across the island. Desperate, the queen attempts to flee, but the hunters refuse to let her escape. Mr. Choi renews his attack while Bak and Mae Dongwook hold her down. Seizing the moment, Chae slashes at the queen with her sword, severing her legs and forcing her to collapse. With one final decisive blow using her special decapitation skill, she beheads the queen, putting an end to her reign of terror. The nation erupts in cheers as news of their victory spreads, and Gunny beams with pride that the raid mission has finally been a success. He is confident that with the queen ant dead, the remaining ant population will dwindle and become extinct within a year, ultimately transforming the area into a safe, habitable zone for humans. Back at the nest, however, Beck remains troubled by the lingering echo of the queen's final scream. Byung-hoo urges him to relax, reminding him that they've avenged Unsuk and that the queen is no more. Meanwhile, the ship emitting interference waves reports to Godo that something is amiss, and apparently all the ants are beginning to return toward the nest. Godo instructs his team to gather information and report back, and Mr. Choi soon notices that the fire barrier he had placed at the entrance of the nest has been shattered. Lim comments that this happened faster than expected, speculating that the queen's final scream might have been a call to rally her remaining companions. Despite Chaehae's confidence that the ants outside shouldn't be able to breach Mr. Choi's barrier, the hunters soon sense a powerful presence approaching. They soon realize it is the Ant King that hatched from the giant egg earlier. As the Ant King unleashes its formidable aura, Chaeha is overcome by its putrid smell, and it becomes evident that this is no ordinary magical beast. Then Mae Dongwook grimly states that they must kill it, but even as it strides past him, he finds himself powerless to stop its advance. The Ant King suddenly devours the Ant Queen's head, then swiftly turns its attention toward the hunters. In one devastating blow, it sends Chaehae flying through the air. In a desperate bid to counter the monstrous force, Mae Dongwook transforms into a giant, ready to engage the beast head-on. However, the Ant King proves far too powerful, and it rips one of Mae Dongwook's arms from his body along with his shield. Undeterred, Mae Dongwook continues his struggle, only to have his remaining arms sliced apart as well. Bak charges into the fray as well, but the Ant King overpowers him, brutally taking him down. It shows no mercy even to Mr. Choi, who suffers the same fate. Lim then fires the most powerful arrow he has at the creature, yet effortlessly catches it from the air and turns its assault on him too. Just when it seems the Ant King is about to finish Lim off, Mae Dongwook intervenes, only to reveal that he has been miraculously healed by Byung-go. Byung-go, having gone into hiding using his camouflage skill, explains that once he activates this ability, he becomes completely invisible, though it renders him immobile, but this is a small price to pay if he can heal them while he is safe. And with quiet determination, Byung-go asserts that as long as he is around, their team will not fall. But the Ant King focuses on Mae Dongwook once more, battering him relentlessly and treating him like a mere plaything. Suddenly, it senses Byung-go despite his invisibility and viciously stabs him in the chest before he can even react. In his final moments, Byung-go uses his last breath to urge Bak to run away. Then the Ant King, in a gruesome display, bites his head off. Bak tries to counterattack, but the creature grabs him by the neck, forcing him to revert back to his human form. In a chilling moment, the Ant King echoes Byung-go's last words, demanding that Bak flee, and through that single phrase, the Ant King demonstrates that it has learned to understand human language. It coldly declares that the hunters are too weak, reminding them that his queen is dead, and that merely killing soldiers will not mend that loss. It then inquires about the whereabouts of their king, but then it senses someone formidable nearby, so it abruptly leaves the nest. Bak wonders if the Ant King was referring to Godo, but there is no time for speculation because they must depart quickly. Soon he notices that the other ants have also returned. Outside, Godo's team discovers that 2 of their units are unreachable. Godo initially considers the possibility of poor reception, but dismisses it since communication signals are strong. He then contacts Tawada's team, asking if they can reach the missing teams. Tawada replies that they cannot and asks Godo if he wants them to go over and check. But Godo states that there is no need because they are already en route to investigate, and he instructs them to wait for him at the designated rendezvous point once they are finished. Godo and his team finally reach the location where the missing squads were expected, but all they find are the dead bodies of the unreachable teams. Just then, a call comes in from back home with someone demanding to know why they didn't report at the scheduled time. Godo explains that they suffered casualties, and the caller asks if Godo hadn't ordered them to focus solely on eliminating mutated beasts to minimize risk. And Godo admits that they were simply too weak, and the caller had expected him to say something like that. The caller then says that losing a few won't be an issue given their overwhelming strength, and then he inquires whether the Korean team is still engaged with the Queen Ant. Godo confirms they are, though he reports that the interference wave isn't working as planned, and that all the ants outside have returned to the nest. The caller asks about their service chance, and Goto estimates that their survival chance is 0% given their current strength. So the caller orders them to retreat temporarily to continue their plan with the second assault team from the sea. He then reveals that their plan is leading the Korean hunters to their death and pretending that they did their best to help them out but failed, and with the Korean power gradually eroded, Japan will be perfectly positioned to seize control of the Korean S-rank gates. Goto then informs his team that Chairman Matsumoto has ordered a retreat and regroup. But no sooner does he finish speaking than the Ant King launches an attack, taking out the girls in the group. Goto then immediately commands Hoshino to retreat and join up with the second team along with Kumamoto's unit. Though Hoshino hesitates, Goto warns that him being here will only get in his way, so Hoshino reluctantly departs. Then the Ant King reveals itself, radiating a formidable aura. It even speaks, asking if Goto is the king, and Goto, taken aback, says that he is indeed the king. The creature then surrounds him with its power, and Goto can't help but notice that its aura mirrors the same intensity he has seen in Jinwoo. Meanwhile, back at the ant nest, the hunters are locked in a desperate struggle against the onslaught of ants. They're barely holding on, each sustaining fatal injuries, and they fear that this may be the end as the relentless ants charge for one final overwhelming attack. Just when all hope seems lost, Jinwoo's soldiers emerge from the shadows, halting the ant onslaught. Baek is left in shock at the sight of these black soldiers, and in a sudden tactical maneuver, Jinwoo exchanges positions with one of them. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.